Hello, thank you for joining us on Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you with Red 10 People Development. The good news is club football is back. The bad news is you've got to listen to myself and Nath try and fill the void for the next 45 minutes or so. On today's podcast, we will look at a potential double injury boost ahead of Stoke City this weekend, catch up with another goal for Nathan Broadhead on international duty, and then look at a packed fixture schedule when squad depth really will be key for Phil Parkey and his players. All that and more on today's show.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
Well, Nath, we were sort of humming and hawing about what we'd actually talk about. How are you doing? You weren't here on last week's show. It's been an international break for us Wrexham fans, but you've been pretty busy yourself.
Yeah, no rest for the wicked. I feel like one of those sort of seasoned internationals that has to just keep going. Kiefer Moore, basically. You know, sort of was he stamped on at Wembley and put through the mill when he came off the bench against Belgium, although there would be less said. I was very ticked off with Wales over the international break, so the less said about that, the better, I think.
But is sort of a phrase I've only heard used in School of Rock, which I did watch at the weekend.
Really? Great film. Yeah. Great film. Ticked off.
Yeah, it's sort of like kind of ticked off. Beano swear word, isn't it?
That's me all over then. I was just ticked off. I just thought why they took the England game was beyond me. I know people said hands were tied, but I still think that was a farce. And then the first handball decision in the Belgium game is an absolute joke on Ethan Ampadu, and then obviously the game gets out of hand, and it is what it is. And all the while I was watching England under-21s scrape past Andorra under-21s, so I was living the high life. But I'm doing well. How are you doing? Obviously I did edit last week's show with you and Sutty, and I did edit out all the anti-Nathan Salt agenda that was in parts of that show, so it was nice and clean by the time it went to air.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a... No, we mentioned you before in the preamble before we started recording, and yeah, you had to edit it out for our lovely listeners.
Sure.
No, thank you for tuning in again, wherever you are, what platform you're on, and thank you for getting in touch this week as well. Warning that towards the end of the podcast, there could be some of your own chants being aired, which we've not actually read through yet, so we will be singing them live. So yeah, and I know most of you hate hearing that. You can turn off early this week. That's absolutely fine. But no, football is back this weekend. Stoke City. And I suppose it's another testament to how far Wrexham have come that for a success-starved generation of fans, losing 3-1 to Stoke City in the FA Cup was a high point of supporting Wrexham, in those non-league doldrum years. And they were Premier League team then, Stoke City. They beat us 3-1. We went 1-0 up. Mark Carrington's header, the green kit, in front of that packed away end. And what a day that was. And 10 and a half years on, we are playing them for real in the league on merit. We deserve to be playing them. And, Stoke, a team who've been at an FA Cup final. They were a Premier League pedigree side for the best part of a decade as well. And another game to really get excited for, isn't it? I know we've had to wait 2 weeks for it, but Stoke away, a local one as well, it's tantalising stuff, isn't it? And it's what we kind of dreamt of, that these games are just run-of-the-mill now. Every single week you're playing someone massive.
Yeah, that's like in my mind, they were Premier League for so long and got into Europe under Tony Pulis. I've been there many times. They're a club where the fan base have become disillusioned, or they had been in recent years. Nathan Jones and Schumacher was there for a bit. Stephen Schumacher now at Bolton. That started well, and then he ended up getting binned. And Mark Robbins had a difficult time last year. There was Michael O'Neill. So they've had a lot of ups and downs. And we've just been up to get to the point. Reminding me of that Mark Carrington header in that game where we ended up losing with Kevin Wilkin in the FA Cup. I don't normally, I wouldn't normally do it now, but I did at the time, made the rare decision to phone in to one of those football phone-in shows. And usually those fans always go viral. And had I done what I did then today, I probably would have been clipped up on Instagram or whatever. But I got into a bit of a back and forth with Ian Wright on the radio, which I'm sure I told you this story many times. But his argument was like, Wrexham should have just been happy to be there. You took the lead. It was a great day out. Thank your lucky stars, really, that you got to run a Premier League team so close. And I've always been of the mindset that like I just judge the game independent of the level, right? So I felt like Wrexham really faded quite badly in that game, and eventually Premier League players showed their worth and whatever. But I was really disappointed to lose that day, not even get a replay out of it in the end. And I remember just getting into this sort of back and forth, not shouting and screaming, but just, that's my memory of that day, getting to a back and forth with Ian Wright on the radio, who is a very lovely man in football. So it was difficult to actually achieve that. I was probably the bad guy, actually, in that case.
We were the giddy press, the media team for that game I was in, and that Wrexham, we took like an army of media team, like a typical sort of media team. You say like 3 or 4 people perhaps to a game. We had like 12. Like everyone came in, and they didn't have enough passes, so I had to technically get like a hospitality ticket and then do commentary from the press box, but I didn't have a press pass. And I remember when the goal went in, like the players' box was either in front of us, but maybe actually just behind us, and it was like, do you remember Omar Asaidi? He was like in the Stoke team that day, and his whole family, I think he's Moroccan. I think his whole family had flown in from Morocco or something. And Mark Carrington scores, and we go absolutely like ape. We go, he was ticked off. And I swear there was verbal exchanges between Asaidi's family and the Wrexham media team for the exuberant celebration when we went 1-0 up. But that's a story.
Rich, you know what? Yeah. We're just on random stories. You can tell it's international break, but you know what? This reminded me of, I had a conversation once with somebody at Oldham, and we were talking about Mike Fondop, Talent. And obviously Mike Fondop used to play for Wrexham and was a really, really funny sort of cult hero type character. And I was asking about Mike Fondop doing really well at Oldham. Like, what's the secret? Like, why is he so good in certain games and maybe isn't in others? And they said, honestly, whenever his family are in town, especially his parents, whenever they're there, he plays incredible. Like, he's just got an extra 10, 20% that you can extract, and he plays really well. And there was a genuine conversation at Oldham about whether they should put a cardboard cutout of his dad in the stand, and like whether that would be enough to deceive Mike Fondop. And I think they were slightly insulting his intelligence there, but I like the idea. So talking of families being in the boxes, that's what that reminded me of, the cardboard cutout of Mike Fondop's dad.
Well, 8 minutes into the podcast, we've spoken about Mike Fondop, Mark Carrington, Omar Asaidi. We are scraping the barrel, and there's chance to come later as well.
No, Stoke. I will say, Rich, about Stoke. Like you say, we've had Southampton, we've had Leicester. Stoke is a big game. In our lifetime, they have been really high, really backed financially. The Coates family have really put a lot of money in there over the years, and they have been mismanaged, and things have gone badly wrong. They've had a lot of top level managers, and I think it'll be a really good atmosphere. They'll turn out. They have always been accused of having a really direct style of play, which is something that comes with Phil Parkinson as well. So I don't know who will be the more direct. They've obviously got a lot of top players as well. If you look at someone like Sorba Thomas, who plays for Wales, and Divin Mabama, who plays up front, is an England under-21 player, was at Man City last season as a youth player, really highly rated. There are others in that Stoke setup that are nice. And Wrexham themselves have got good players as well. So it will be funny going back and walking, if people walk down the canal or however they get there, just driving up to it. And it'll be those memories from that Mark Carrington trip, that Kevin Wilkin trip, and actually now we're on par. There'll be no need to call into Ian Wright or whoever's on the 606, not Charlie Savage, Robbie Savage or Chris Sutton. We are there on merit, and we've been good away from home. So, we're going there with every chance of getting a result.
I think as well, for me, whenever we play, there's a calibre of team, and I include Stoke in that. I think of other teams like Wigan, like Hull, teams that we've traditionally played in the league previously anyway. And the fact that they've gone on to become established Premier League teams and have these cup final appearances and these European adventures, it just gives me hope of, again, to go full circle, why not Wrexham? Because we've played so many teams you look at now and just think, they've had 5 years in the Premier League. They're a big club now. We can go and do that, because there's no reason that you should say Hull City, Wigan, Stoke are bigger clubs than Wrexham. It's because they've gone and they've done that, and their history is fantastic. Stoke are the exception, I think, of the trio there, but it gives me hope. I think looking at a team like Stoke, that Wrexham can go and do that. Why can't we be a team that reaches an FA Cup final? Why can't we be a team who goes on a European adventure? But of course, we've got to get out of this league first. We've got to get up the table. And Nath, it's been very interesting as well as a Wrexham fan this season, because the home form in the Cup's been brilliant. We've not won a home league game yet this season, but away from home, we've been one of the best teams in the entire division. And again, Stoke, a surprise package themselves, but Wrexham away from home right now, you'd back us to be able to grind out or stay in a game against just about anyone, wouldn't you?
Yeah, the difficulty is that that's exactly what Stoke do. They are never within. They're always within a single goal. I think in every game they've been in, I don't think they've been blown out of any game so far this season. So they are very resolute. Or even if they go behind, they're able to stay within striking distance, and that was obviously key to us getting back into it. Leicester, the longer it went on, we were able to eventually strike back through Broadhead. But that is what it is about away from home, I think, just staying in the game for as long as we can. It is going to be a tough place to go. I don't even know what it's called now. I call it the Britannia still. It might be the Bet365 Stadium. It might be something else ever since. But it is a tough place to go. All the sides open. If the wind picks up, you want to be going there really in August, not in October, November. It is a tough old place to go, Stoke. And they will be, I think, flirting around maybe the bottom end of the playoffs, maybe top 8 to 10, where we were kind of where we put ourselves really at the start of the season, the predictions, right? Like that 8 to 12 bracket. I think they'll have something similar in their mind. But it's another good test, and I think they've got a lot of pace, right, out wide in kind of Sorba and Manhuff and Mabama and Jamie Donnelly, and a lot of creativity. And so for us, we're going to need to get Issa Kabore going the other way. We're going to need to try and pin them back. Sound like a broken record, but it's true. We can give Stoke, something to think about. And also, if we can get the first goal, that'll be huge. Because once we got that at Millwall, it gave us something to protect. And from there, they really struggled against a low block. So, yeah, I'm expecting a very, very close game.
Similar to us as well, Stoke have taken more points away from home than at home this season. I think they've taken 7 from a possible 12 at home, and they've taken 8 on the road. And again, Sooty said something important last week, Nath, and we touched upon it. That in our job as journalists, at this stage of the season, sort of before the first 10 games are played, you can use a league position to really amplify and sensationalise a run of form, can't you? Because it sounds so remarkable. How's that team down there? How's that team all the way up there? But the reality is they're 2 points between them or something. But you can use it to sensationalise. And we see it certainly, I think, at the Premier League level, where if a team's bottom half, you can say, wow, they're 10th, for example, as a team we follow for work. And, they're 2 or 3 points away from being top 4 sometimes. So Wrexham at the moment, though, 9 games played. It will be the 10 when we get to Stoke this weekend after that. And then because these next run of fixtures come so thick and fast, by the next international break, we're going to have a real good idea, aren't we, of where this Wrexham team's at? Because right now it's, like I say, it's still a bit too early to make like big sort of statements on too many of the teams. There's still so much, the fixtures people have had and how congested the middle of the table is. But once we've got to November, we're going to start to see teams settle in positions where they're going to roughly be there or thereabouts. And for Wrexham's point of view as well, Nath, it's still very important, isn't it, for Parky to get this sort of, like I said in the last game, it's 3 games, 3-1 draws in a row. If you win at Stoke, you can say, wow, it's 4 unbeaten. If you don't win at Stoke, it's 4 games without a win.
Yeah, I'm really quite excited about this specific period now between the October international break and the November international break, because I think we've got players coming into form. I think we've got players coming back into fitness, more options. I want to get to a point where Parky can make 5 subs and the quality doesn't really drop off hugely. Now, there will be some drop off, hence why some people start and some people are on the bench. But if you're able to bring on Ollie Rathbone for George Dobson or George Dobson for Ollie Rathbone, I think that's great. If you're able to bring on Nathan Broadhead for Lewis O'Brien or Lewis O'Brien for Nathan Broadhead, I think that's great. Matty James for Ben Sheaf, I think is solid as he showed at Leicester. If you're able to bring on Ryan Barnett for Issa Kabore, I think that is still solid. I think that these are all players who can influence matches at this level, I think. And just so far, it's been either injuries, either Kekache's gone down, or Windass has gone down, or maybe there's been a scare over more, or Cody's dropped out of it, and Doyle's dropped out of it, and different things. And I think we're at a key point in the season now where we probably are going to settle on a team. But we are going to settle on an 11. You've got very limited distractions. Obviously, you've got your November international break, then your one in March. So we are going to be kind of thick and fast now, the games. And it is going to be a case of like, you aren't going to just get through this period with 11 players. You know, the 11 that start at Stoke, is it just going to be them that plays against Oxford, Coventry, Cardiff, Portsmouth in that spell? And they're all really, really grinds of games, right? And all I've seen so far in recent games is we're ready to grind. We're ready to go into the mix with these teams. And like you say, it's a weird league where I was actually speaking to the Birmingham City press officer the other day, and we were just chatting about the game at the racecourse, and yeah, it was a fair result. And, you know, in the end, it felt fair. But we were just talking about the level generally, and he was like, you know, you could play against Team A on Tuesday and lose 3-0, and then that same team could go and play someone much worse than you, and they lose 3-0 to them. And then the following Tuesday, they go and beat top of the table 2-0 or whatever. It's such an unpredictable league, and that's why I'm going to hold myself, or try to hold myself, to this standard where individual results I'm not going to react to too much, because honestly, we're seeing really good teams lay an egg quite a lot. And, you know, this is a new level for us. It's a new level for some of the, not new level, but it's been a long time since Parky's been at the level and things. So, yeah, we're doing all right. I listened to Sutty last week, and Soothing Sutty was kind of in the mood, and it's all right actually. We're going to Stoke not in panic stations, and I think that's as good as we can ask for, really, after the furore around, you know, the QPR game and whatnot.
Like Nathan Salt on a Friday night on the dance floor, we are ready to grind, aren't we? Should we get the Stoke preview then?
Sure, why not? Right then, Stoke preview. I had to take a quick break because the image that Richard painted was just horrifying for you, for me, my parents, anyone listening. Awful stuff. But Dan from the Every Step Along the Way podcast was fortunate he didn't have to hear that, thankfully. But I did catch up with him to find out a bit about Stoke. Are the fans excited again? What are their ambitions for the season? And do they think they're going to beat Wrexham? So Every Step Along the Way podcast. Dan, here's what he had to tell me. Okay, Dan, I was going to say before I came on that I was very nervous about coming to Stoke, as many teams are. But then I actually checked the form, and you started like a steam train, and now you're a bit like, now you're taking our little shtick, which is draw every game possible. How's Stoke's start to the season been? How would you sum it up?
A lot better than what we've expected. A lot better than what we've become accustomed to as well in the last few years. I get sick of saying this, but 7 successive seasons we've been in the Championship, and every one we've finished between 14th and 18th. So you can imagine, like, you know, by 2/3 of the season it's over, and we've not really had too many decent starts. So it's nice to have this one. I think we've had a couple of us in that time under Michael O'Neill where we've been in the playoffs, but both times it was centred around sort of one breakout academy player. First it was Tyrese Campbell, season after it was Harry Suter. They both got ACL injuries around this time of year, and the season just fell apart. Although we've had sort of Boston Lawal, who's been the breakout star this year, where it's come from nowhere to be absolutely immense and looking like one of the best players in the division. And he's now got an injury for a few weeks, but it doesn't feel the same. Like back then, we sort of knew that those seasons, it was all based, the whole team was based around this one player, and they were making us tick. This feels like we've got a complete side to a certain degree, and you can take one or two of them out and somebody else will come in and it won't too much negatively affect it. We've been playing quite attractive football, quite Stoke-like football as well. I know people will know sort of what that means. So we've got like proper wingers, people like Sorba Thomas and that. So yeah, that massively helps the fan base connect with the team as well. I think for far too long we've had all the inverted winger stuff that becomes so popular in recent years, hasn't it? Where nobody ever beats a man, nobody gets the byline, puts a cross in. It's all, you know, sort of passed sideways, backwards to and we're very much more direct, which I think the fans are loving. So yeah, we're not long ball by any stretch. But we get everyone who gets the ball is looking to move it forward, and I think that's, like I say, it's good to watch at the minute.
In the day job, I used to do this column. It was called On the Road, and you'd go to different grounds and you'd do a piece about the kind of lay of the land. And I remember I went to Stoke. I can't remember what the pub was called, but it was like a beer garden very close to the ground. And I remember chatting to Stoke fans in there, and it was completely disillusioned with the football club. This was under Nathan Jones now, so it was a bad time. You know, from going in from the outside, it was a really bad time. He didn't really want to be there, the manager, by the look of it. Players weren't working. And it's felt like that for a while, you know. Whenever I chat to people about Stoke, or Dad asks about Stoke, it's thinking about that European team, or when Wrexham played Stoke and they had Peter Crouch and Stephen Ireland, and, you know, later years it was Shaqiri and Bojan and Afellay, and getting into Europe. We've obviously gone up at a really quick rate. Obviously, you came from quite high up in the Premier League down and have stuck in this level. Has the mood, not just for this season, but does everything feel a lot healthier now? Robin's obviously very accomplished manager, or is it still, you know, you still feel in the doldrums a bit?
So we're expecting to be a massive crowd again on Saturday. There was for the last game against Norwich, and pretty much every home game this season, the average is a good few thousand up on what we've been averaging in the last couple of years. So it tells me that the fans are buying back into it. I think Mark Robins, you mentioned there, is a massive part of that. He is, not in the way he plays, but in the way the sort of the aura around him, and the way he conducts himself. He is the closest thing to Tony Pulis since Tony Pulis was here, and obviously you know how much success we had with him. I think like I say, he's very straight with people. He doesn't sort of mess around, and I think that sort of energy is positive both for the players and for the supporters. And there's been a massive connection, and he needed it, because the only time we've really had it in recent years was when Steven Schumacher was here and started playing decent football and that, and I think the fans were enjoying going. But a lot of supporters, when you ask them, like, I don't think he's the man to ever take us up, but we are enjoying this sort of little period. And then obviously they relieved him of his duties and put Narcis Polak in charge, and that just created such a storm, because obviously Polak came in, no managerial experience, wanted to play this sort of Spanish way that none of the players were sort of there for, and that we just got progressively worse. You could see it week by week, we were getting worse. And obviously John Walters had made this bold call, and it had completely backfired. John Walters, being the club legend as a player, had come in with no experience sort of majorly in the role that he was given. So he already had a few people questioning, like, should he be doing this? You know, and then obviously because that backfired, it was just like everyone was just firing everything at him, like he's doing, you know, this is all terrible. And say Robins has come in, and that sort of saved Walters in one respect. We did say I sort of was of the cause that you can't, every time a managerial change happens, it doesn't work. You can't out your technical director of football, whatever. Well, there's no point in having them. Because if every time one thing doesn't work, you change them, you may as well not have them and just have a manager. So obviously Robin's come in, and this has really worked. It's, like I say, it's connected everything back together. He's the perfect man for it. Sort of maybe fell into his lap, but hey, sometimes you need that bit of luck, don't you? And we did a thing that, like, you know, is he now forgiven? Like, when we had this fantastic start, we were sort of top where we at the end of August. Do you now forgive John Walters? You know, is he now thinking? Everyone was like, yeah, we're all good now. We're all good. We got there in the end, kind of thing. So I think, yeah, for the first time in a lot of years, we are now sort of united back together as a fan base. You always have the odd ones where you were never happy, or sort of expected, why aren't we top 10 in the Premier League? And I'm like, that's not, I don't think that's our natural setting, Joey. We may get there occasionally, like we did the years you were mentioning there, but if you were to say where is our sort of natural place, I don't believe it's there, to be said.
My favourite thing about that answer was trying to convince Stoke players to play a Spanish brand of football mid-season. Yeah. That's my favourite part of the answer. you guys, by the look of it, from what I can see, you play a pretty standard 4-2-3-1. You know, Sorba Thomas one side, Manhuff on the other. He looks a really promising player. For anyone who maybe hasn't watched
Yeah.
him, is he someone that could cause Wrexham problems? He seems to be playing sort of wide on the right, and the left hand side of Wrexham's defence or wing back area has definitely been, while it's getting better, that has been probably the biggest area of concern.
Yeah, so we played, I think it was Birmingham the other week at home, and the poor lad who played left back for Birmingham he had an absolute nightmare against him. He was just sort of, again, beating him time and time and time again, the first half, especially. And he has that in his locker. He can just take when his tail's up a bit. And I think because we spent £3 million on Cisse in the summer, who's a winger who can play on both flanks for a bit of competition. Also, we brought Sorba Thomas in, who's come in and took all the limelight. And then we've moved sort of Bejon's he's going to be injured for the weekend and the foreseeable future after dislocating his shoulder on international duty. But him, obviously, there was the four of them who can take sort of the wing spots, or it goes to number 10. And yeah, it sort of just kicked Million up a bit. Like, I think he'd been here 18 months and he'd sort of got comfortable that no one was really challenging for his place. He was a bit of a star of the team and he could turn it on when he wanted to. We weren't ever really going anywhere, so there was no need to do it every week in his eyes. It was sort of that kind of thing where I was like, well, yeah, I'm not achieving anything here. And then, like I say, I think whether it's the fact that we may do something this year, or whether he's got the competition, or a bit of both, he's now, like I say, firing. Sorry.
He's got Wrexham fever. That's what Dan's got. Wrexham fever coming to town. He's sick with it. He's excited. I was going to say quickly then, while you're getting all that Wrexham flu out of you, Divin Mabama up front. Obviously, young lad. Maybe people would. I follow a lot of academy football with work, and I know that he plays for England under 21s. I've watched him play regularly. Lee Carsley, massive fan of what he can do with his back to goal. How has he found those regular minutes in the Championship? Because it is different to playing Premier League 2. You know, it is a different experience totally.
Yeah, so over recent years, we've had a lot of promising young players come in on loan, and we've looked at them, and a lot of them have been very raw. They've been their first loans, but they've been like without any sort of professional football experience, no men's football experience. So they've come to us, they've been raw, and we've seen glimpses, but then the next loan they've had has been when they've sort of shone. So we had Liam Delap, we had Jaden Philogene, for example, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, people who've gone on to be, England internationals and stuff. And like I say, we saw little bits, but they never really did it consistently. And then, like I say, the next move they did is when they really turned it on. So he's come in, and we were expecting pretty much the same. Signed Robert Bosnick as well, Slovakian international this summer. Thought he'll probably start most games. Mubama will come on and whatever. But Mubama got the nod and scored 2 in his first few games. Thinking fantastic. Yeah, he leads the line really well. His hold-up play, his runs are so intelligent. He just drags defenders out the way to make room for others. He is the focal point. And the press, we play with a real high press. His energy's up there is fantastic. He's constantly pushing, and the four of them, him and the three behind, constantly like pushing up on the defenders, and anyone who tries to play out and has a nightmare against him because they're all just sort of snapping at them. And like I say, that comes from him. If he didn't do it, if he didn't have that energy, the whole thing would fall apart. And yeah, I'm really impressed with him. Some people have been, because he hasn't scored since that second game of the season against Sheffield Wednesday. Some people are sort of, oh yeah, he's not doing that. I'm like, but the role he's playing is so much more than just putting the ball in the back of the net. He's allowing people like Thomas and Manoff to be as good as they been and creating and scoring chances. It's like the goal we scored against just before the international break. And he got Thomas who got the ball on the halfway line. He's looked up and Manoff's run inside the fullback, but he makes a diagonal run and just drags the centre back out, giving Thomas a massive. Rather than having to pick a pass between two players, he's now got a massive space to hit the ball into, and it's like things like that. I mean, sometimes go unnoticed, don't they? That if he doesn't make that run, that goal probably doesn't happen. But by taking himself out of the game and taking a defender with him, he's, like I say, given Sorba Thomas, he can't not find him because he's got like a 30-yard range to pass this ball into now.
Yeah, I always think,
But
I
yeah,
always think, I always think when
so
multiple
intelligent.
managers, I always think when multiple managers really like a player, it's a bit of a giveaway that they've got a lot more than just the goals and assists of what you might be able to see on the stat sheet. The actual intangibles of their game are very, very valuable. I guess the last question for me before just looking ahead to the game is, what were your expectations going into the campaign, or generally the fan base, and do you think they've been reset now based on the start you've made?
I was hoping for a top 12, top 10. I did actually say I thought we'd finish 8th before the season started, but I am overly optimistic all the time. I am one of them. The Championship is that type of league that you can turn 3 defeats into wins and move up about 6 or 7 places, like with 9 points. So it doesn't take that much to go from looking at one end of the table to the other. It just happens so that we haven't done it in all the years we've been back in this league. I still think we can be in and around the playoffs. And if we are within a chance of finishing in the top 6 with 2-3 games to go, then I think that's a successful season, regardless of how it actually ends. I think that'll be progress. And I think that people are just enjoying going to the game. Like I say, the football being played it's exciting, it's direct, it's creating chances, it's looking at getting flair players on the ball and having them create. And we've got a solid defence to back it up. So we're not conceding goals. We're always in games, and we've got players we know can unlock defences and create chances. So I'd say people are just enjoying going at the minute.
Well, we'll see at the weekend, because I think it'll be a good atmosphere, be a big home crowd. I'm expecting very big away crowd. You say you're always in games on the road. We're always in the games. We showed that at Leicester. We showed that at Millwall. We're quite happy to not have the ball and try and catch you on the counter. So I think it'll be a really interesting game. You got Mark Robbins on one side, incredibly experienced. Phil Parkinson on the other. I'm not expecting you to come on here and predict a 3-0 Wrexham win, but how do you see the game going? Do you think it'll be maybe one goal either way, or do you think you can, rediscover that early? Because you've done well at home, except for maybe that Bradford game in the Cup where you got trounced. But I think generally at home you've been pretty solid, haven't you?
Yeah, so both the Carabao Cup games this season, we made like 11 changes and stuff, and it was we were still expecting to beat Bradford, I'll be honest, but obviously we didn't. In the league, we I think it's only us and Arsenal in the top 7 leagues who are yet to concede more than 1 in a game. So we've done, I'd say, because we've obviously no one conceded a maximum 1. That's how we've always managed to sort of stay in the games. I think that will continue in this game. As for how it goes, because of how we play, a lot has always depended all season on the first goal. So if we get in front and teams then have to come onto us more, the pace that we've got up front and the ability to sort of sit and counter-attack Thomas, Manoff, Mubama, and then having sort of the 10, whether it be Juno or Donnelly, sort of picking passes, that's when it's led to a scoring and sort of going on to getting 2-3 goal leads. Obviously, when we go behind and teams then sit back and compact, we're having a lot of chances, but we're struggling to really open teams who don't give us that space in behind. So yeah, I think it does depend on the first goal. If we get it, I think we'll possibly run out maybe 2 or 3-1 winners. If you get it, it could well be a really frustrating afternoon for us. Possibly a victory for yourself or 1-1.
So, Rich, as he was saying, then their strength is out wide. Those kind of players. Sorba Thomas, a lot of expectation and a lot of pressure on him. We know about him through Wales. Manhuff, I think you might have even mentioned it. It was mentioned, I think, in the Birmingham City preview with Alex when you spoke to him, where Alex Cochrane had a nightmare against Manhuff. He just absolutely torched him, and you heard Dan make mention of it there. It's a big. I mean, it is every week. It's the rise. It's kind of the whole thing that our system hinges on. It's a big game for if it's Ryan Longman. Is it going to be Kakache? You chucking him straight back in? I would be surprised if he does, because you've got to play a bit more of the long game with him. So if it is Ryan Longman, or ex-Stoke player James McLean, it's a huge test when their strength is wide on the right there.
Yeah, and there doesn't seem to be a perfect solution, does there, this weekend going into that? Like you said there, Parky said this week that Libby Kakache has been training. He's had a sort of full week of training. Personally, I'd be surprised if he went into the starting lineup just because we're at the start of a run of fixtures. There's no point risking a repercussion. So as much as I'd love to see Kakache and Kabore play together, we might see that against Oxford next week, hopefully. But I think Kakache from the bench for me on Saturday. And yeah, I think you've just got to go for your most mobile option really in that role. And to be fair to him, like I said, I've not been a fan so much, but I think Ryan Longman from the left wing back position has been sort of the best understudy so far this season, the one who's offered the most in both departments as sort of an attacking outlet and a defensive one. I know he's had those lapses, but like I said, the one against Southampton it's a culmination of being out of position, but also being thrown on into a game of that magnitude. I think when he starts, Longman's maybe not as problematic as he has been. And yeah, I think that's probably what I would go for. It doesn't mean that it's going to sort of fill me with too much confidence. I just don't think there is an ideal solution, really. And I guess the other question, Nate, that was posed a few weeks back now when Kakache got injured again was, do you think about Brent or Doyle out there, or are you sticking to this proper sort of winger?
There's no good. I don't feel like there's a really solid option. There's no ideal solution, right? So it is an area where if you were the opposition manager, you would look to that every week. And I think it's just about, can Wrexham compensate, whether that is Sheaf shuffling over or whether that is having a slightly more defensive left 10 and the right number 10 is a little bit more advanced. If Windass does play on the right, you can probably get away with it because you've got Kabore to mop it up. On the left, you just go a little bit more conservative. Is it O'Brien? Is he tucking in? Is it Broadhead, who does like to play in wide areas? Can he just kind of fill that spot, move across? Although now I'm breaking down the tactics, it reminds me about this Red Passion comment that said, because of how I look, I shouldn't be allowed to talk football tactics. So I thought I had this like hipster Bundesliga manager type vibe. But apparently not.
You're
apparently
inclined to talk tactics because you look like you know what you're saying.
No, but you know what they said? They said that I look like somebody who, when you play school football, the ball bounces off me, which wasn't actually too far wrong. So maybe they knew more than they were letting on. But yeah, just to get that lovely comment in there.
Doesn't mean you don't know tactics, though, does it? It just means you can't implement them yourself.
Yes, yeah, but apparently it just doesn't feel right when they look at me talking about it as the Gegenpress.
Circle on Red Passion.
Yes, yeah. So they don't like this segment of it, but I would think if you could have someone like Lewis O'Brien tucking in to just almost clog up the space, do you know what I mean? Like for Ryan Longman, just to give that bit more protection. I still think it's a complete toss-up between Doyle and Brunt. I think it probably will be Doyle that plays there. I think Brunt was a little bit hard done by not to start against Birmingham, but I think maybe Parky showed you his preferred choice. I think it's good that Brunt is chomping at the bit. Yeah, I think it's good that he's making Doyle work, but clearly I think he sees Doyle as, and I think generally we would say that right now Doyle is the more the higher level player, right? Even if it hasn't quite clicked in every game for Wrexham so far. So Brunt is definitely knocking on the door. I would think it'd be Longman. I think it'd be Doyle. I think it'll be Hyam, who I think Sutty said last week hasn't put a foot wrong so far for me. He's been everything we expected him to be, given he played every minute in the Championship last season for Blackburn. Max is really coming into it now. Kabore is a massive help. I'd expect it to be Sheaf. I'd expect it to be Dobson. I actually would like to see Rathbone on the bench. I don't actually think Kakache will even make the bench. It'll probably be McLean, I would have thought, in terms of just giving Kakache those more days. You've got a lot of midweek matches now, and it's tight turnarounds. And definitely, if you've had 2 injuries already by the 15th of October, 16th of October, you need to be extra careful, right? So let's see. I would just try and keep it compact, especially if you can limit Manhoff and you can limit Sorba Thomas. That takes away 2 huge outlets for Stoke, and at that point, centrally, we are very strong. We are more of a narrow team outside of Kabore, right? I don't think we have loads coming out of Longman. So play to our strengths and try to nullify theirs. Shut it down out wide and try and funnel things through the middle, and we could be onto a winner.
Again, I think we take that as right as well, that we're both saying Kiefer Moore, lone striker, with Windass and O'Brien playing off him, which then says the Nathan Broadhead question again. He was off the bench for Wales, scored for Wales against Belgium. I think he's got 3 goals in his last 6 games for club and country. It's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because this is a guy who's in form. He's clearly got the confidence in him right now. But as we've said in the past, Nath, as much as he might not want to be pigeonholed as a super sub, he has got this proven track record. And I think his skill set, particularly in the way we play at the moment, lends itself more to being an impact player from the bench in the number 10 role. If it was a left winger, I think you could start him. But I think because it's one of the number 10 roles, like you said, O'Brien's going to have to drop back and help Longman probably at left wing back. Windass will have a bit more of a free role, but he'll have to drop into central midfield, make it sort of 4 at times there, 3 or 4. Broadhead almost feels like a little bit of a luxury in attack just because he's not doing maybe as much defensively as those two. So what do you reckon on Broadhead at the moment? Do you agree that he should still be a sub for the meantime? I mean, what more can he really do?
I do think there is a school of thought where if Stoke are going to dominate the ball and Stoke are going to try and impose their will, they play a really high press, an aggressive press. They have the 3 they play a 4-2-3-1 with the 3 and the Mubama as the striker. Mubama's a pressing machine. Thomas, Manhoef, and whoever plays the 10, maybe Jamie Donnelly, they will aggressively press the back 3. So you are going to need what they want you to do is bypass the midfield, really. Try and play it long. That isn't actually the worst tactic in the world for us, given we've got Kiefer to play it off. But the argument is, on a big pitch like that, who is going to get you up the pitch? Who is the pace to get you away from players if they are going to aggressively push? And the answer is Kabore, and really the answer is Broadhead, right? So I think there is an argument that he could start the game, and he is your outball. He is your outlet, that if anything does bounce off Kiefer, he's the one who can get you in behind, because they will want to aggressively press onto the back 3. The counter to that is save that pace, keep it in a jar, ready for the 70th minute or when there are tiring legs, and you can just say, right, the game is a bit stretched. You hope that the game is very much still tight by then. If there's 1 goal in it, if it's 0-0, and then go and take it to them. If it's 2 or 3 by then, well, then the game's gone. If it's out of favour, and if it's if Wrexham are 2 or 3 up, then it's a case of you're just changing subs just to keep things fresh, and you don't really need that impact. But if you bring him on versus if you bring, say, Lewis O'Brien on, I think you're getting 2 different things, right? Like we've said before, someone does have to do the grind. Someone has to do the hard work to just chip away at defenders, these rugged centre halves or these fullbacks that will get tired. Typically, they don't get changed. So, great form. He's arguably the most informed player in the squad right now, right? Like you could argue with his exploits in the international break and the cup games, and he's banging form. He couldn't be in better form. But I do just feel he will be that spark plug off the bench again. I think it's coming, though. It's inevitable that, I think Sutty might have even mentioned, it's inevitable that in the longer term, it has to be Windass and Broadhead, really. If you want to be like a top-end team at this level and you add a couple of pieces, it's got to be front foot, our own high press. It's Windass, it's O'Brien next to Sheaf, it's Broadhead, it's Kabore, it's Kadkache, and you really sort of put your foot down on opponents. Right now, we're still finding our way a little bit. But I don't know. Do you see my thinking though? Right, like there's definitely 2 schools of thought on what he could offer, both as a starter and as a sub.
Again, I feel like this is something that it's really difficult, because as a fan, I just want to see. I think as a fan, sometimes you want to see all your attacking players on the pitch at once. But that's not how you win a game of football. I think particularly how we've been away from home this season, the last game's a prime example. You just dig in and make it a war of attrition for 70 minutes, and then you play in the last 20 minutes. And I think that's kind of our blueprint for going away from home. I wouldn't be surprised if Stoke's almost identical to the Leicester City performance, that, they've got a lot of the ball. We sit deep. We kind of limit them. And the last half hour, 20 minutes, that's when we play. That's when you bring Broadhead on. That's when you do that. And, the risk is that you could say, no, we're going to go attacking. We're going to start Kabora. We're going to start Windass. We're going to start Broadhead. We'll start more. But Stoke score within the first 10 minutes. And you've not really got anything else to play then. You've played your cards. They can see what you've got. You're not bringing someone off the bench who's going to... O'Brien's probably not going to come off the bench and change the game in your favour in that sense, like Broadhead would. So I think the performances almost mirror what we need to happen this season. That for the first sort of 75% of the season and the performances, you just dig in there and you don't fall behind and you stay in the battle. And then in the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes of a match, you bring your attacking players on, you go and try and win the game, you do something there. And I think, if Wrexham get to the point in sort of March or April and we're safe, maybe not mathematically safe, but we're safe. We're probably not going to go up, we're not going to go down. That's when you want to kind of see Parky evolve his formation and say, you know what, this is when we can start playing with Broadhead and Windass. Try something a bit new and see what happens. But I think at this stage of the season, when there is already so much scrutiny on Parky, on Wrexham, or every time we drop points, I think you just got to play the percentages. And I think that's playing a more conservative lineup and then keeping some of these sort of flair players and game changers on the bench and seeing what can happen. And you can't fault it because the ends justified the means at Leicester. If we'd played the exact same way at Leicester, but maybe lost 2-0 in the end, I think there would have been critique of that performance. But the fact we went there and we got a point, and it could have been 3 points by the end, really validated what we're trying to do. And it's not always pretty. There's going to be lots of nail biting, I'm sure, at Stoke on Saturday. But I reckon we'll give it a good go. And I reckon we'll be in the contest with 70 minutes left. And that's when you bring your subs on.
One of the big questions then, Ollie Rathbone, great he's back in, Player of the Year Ollie Rathbone. Do feel like we've missed his energy, particularly at home, where he was a real energizer bunny for us, thinking about the Barnsley game, and there are countless others. We don't expect him, I think you and I are both in agreement, Rich, we don't expect him to be thrown in away at Stoke. It's a tough old game to be sort of thrust into. But there's also no easy game to put him into. Oxford is next Wednesday. On paper, Sutty said it as well, I keep referencing Sutty last week, but he said like that kind of feels like a must-win. Otherwise, it's going on and on and on. How do you see Rathbone? Is it a slow integration? Is it 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here, half an hour here? Or is it just chuck him in? Because I would argue that Dobson is playing so well and Sheaf is just such a good footballer that do you need to force it with Rathbone after being out for so long?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. If you were a bit more desperate, if it was maybe towards the end of a season or you didn't have credible competitors in that position, you throw Rathbone back in maybe and you risk a repercussion. There's always that element of uncertainty because we always say, oh, it's at risk to put someone who's been injured back in, but a lot of the time they might not have one. But there is that. It's not a good look if someone's been out that long, thrown back in too early, pull up, and they're out for another long period of time. I just don't think right now there's a need or a necessity to risk Rathbone this early on in the campaign because with 9 games in, there's so much football left to be played and we can get by right now without him. We'll be better once he's fully fit, but I think it would be sensible to put him on the bench. And I think you do just build him up. You give him 10 minutes, then you give him 15, 20, give him half an hour, and then maybe that Cardiff game, you're throwing him from the start if he's performed well enough from the bench and looked all right in those next couple of games. I'd
love him in that Cardiff game. I'd love him if he's ready to go and he's snapping at it and he's at the heels of people, and because that'll be a real feisty game and you're going to need people, not second guessing 50-50s and if he's at it and he's been raring to go. Remember he got injured in Australia, and that feels like a long time ago for me. I can't imagine how long it feels like for him. I'd love him in that game. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, you're going to need battlers in that game. It's a different maybe profile with the circus maybe that goes around that one. And you're going to need McLean, I think. You'll need Rathbone. You're going to need some people who can deal with that. So I guess the question again comes around to this though, Nath, is we had Sutty on. He gave his best 11 again last week. He thinks what it would be when fully fit. For you, is it just we get Rathbone back up to match fitness, and then we slowly pit him against Dobson for that last midfield role, because they're very different profiles of players. I do think in certain games, Dobson, you just need that warrior, someone who's going to run around, cover every blade of grass, really harass your opponents. Rathbone's a bit more progressive, can make those darting runs forward, offers more of a goal threat, will have a pop from distance as well. But it's just interesting to see how that midfield would fare with Rathbone rather than Dobson in it.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at it, though, like in the longer term, is like I said, I think it'll be Sheaf, O'Brien, Broadhead, Windass. I think that they are just the 4 technically better players. But you would have to say that Dobson's been one of the revelations of the season so far. Rathbone really came into his own, and once he was in full flight last season, was amazing. And won Player of the Year, and was deserving of that. Even if you and I didn't pick him, he was deserving of that award.
Do you see Rathbone then as one of the 2 deeper midfielders, or do you actually think he could do a job as one of the sort of 10s?
I think he would be better as one of the 10s. I think the way it's set up with the 2 deeper players is you're not really looking for. I know Dobson did score from that set piece, but like you're not looking for goal threats there. You're looking for protection and solidity, and those are 2 words that I don't think best sum up what Ollie Rathbone can give you. He gives you energy and legs and a goal threat and channel running, and he just gives you late runs into the box. He gives you a lot like that, and we're talking like fully fit, right? So there's no injuries and whatnot. That's an idealistic world that you don't get to live in very often as a football manager, as Parky's already seen with Kikache and Windass and whatnot. Now, I guarantee that if Windass had been injured when he was, and Rathbone was fit, I truly believe that Rathbone would have come on ahead of Broadhead that day against West Brom, was it? West Brom. I don't think Broadhead would have been chucked into it, but obviously Rathbone wasn't available, and that was just a limited option there. But I actually think to maximise him, you want to give him a bit more license to make those runs to get forward, and so I think he's better suited as one of the options in that 10 slot. Do you agree with that, or do you think he's got the discipline to play deeper?
Yeah, I think he can, but like I said, I just think maybe the cover defensively would, like I said, you could play O'Brien there, you could play Dobson there, you could play Sheaf there, Matty James as well. I think his we need him more as a cover for a 10 than for one of the Holden ones, personally. So I think we're kind of in agreement then, Nath, that, well, I would have to catch you on the bench this weekend. Maybe you wouldn't. Rathbone would be, if you get him on there, get him on. But the starting lineup, same as Birmingham then for you?
Yeah, I don't really see the need to change it. Like I say, maybe you shuffle it on the bench a little bit, but I think Birmingham showed you what he felt like his strongest lineup was, bar a couple of returning from injury. I don't expect Kikache to be involved. You think he might make the bench? And we'll see. Another roll of the dice, big game, and maybe this is boring, but I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think we are both the draw
4
specialists.
in a row.
Stoke have gone for a lot of draws. They might be on. I think they might have drawn 3 in a row currently as well. So they, it's just got draw written all over it again. I think very, very close game. They don't concede more than 1 goal, and I think we might score first and they peg us back late on.
Yeah, again, like I said, it's interesting how narratives work, because they've not won any of their last 4. They've only actually won 1 of their last 6 in the league. Whereas, similar for us, the draws, as Rob Mack famously said on the doc, some of them feel like wins, some of them feel like defeats. And once they start racking up, you maybe look at them as points lost, because it would have been beneficial to win a game and lose 3. That would have been maybe to be that consistent and not lose, oddly. But I think it's going to be 2-1 either way. I think it will be 1-1 on that sort of 60, 70th minute mark. And it's whichever subs make the difference. So I'm going 2-1. Who knows? Flip a coin. I want it to be a Wrexham win, of course I do, but I also feel that the way we play away from home, there might be a game where it comes unstuck in the next few, just because that's the way, that's kind of the risky approach it is, but sitting back so deep that if you come against a team who have informed forwards, you can find yourself going behind, and it's a bit tricky to get back in then. The other element of that then, Nath, is usually in these match weeks where you've got 2 games, you would change it for a Tuesday nighter. Oxford's actually the Wednesday night. I know it's very difficult to say now what your team would be for in a week's time, but do you think Parky will have to make many changes to his side regardless what happens this weekend?
So hard to say, isn't it? I think you would like to...
So hypothetically then, let's say if we don't lose this weekend...
Hypothetically, I think he would like to bring Kakache back in. I would think. I'm assuming they'll try and arrange some kind of intra-squad 11v11 or something just to try and mimic action, even if they arrange some sort of friendly that they can get between a team just to get some minutes in practice game. I would think he would want Kakache in there as soon as he's able to and ready to go. And it wouldn't shock me if Broadhead started the game against Oxford. If he comes on and makes a difference again against Stoke, at that point, I think it's becoming very, very difficult to keep making the case to start him on the bench. So there'll always be one or two alterations. You just hope that it's not too many enforced by injury and it's more selection-based than sort of injury-forced.
Yeah, I think, like I said, similar to you against Oxford, that you might get 2 changes to the lineup potentially, depending on what happens this weekend. You might have Broadhead start, you might have Kakache start. You could maybe even flip Doyle or Brunt for one or the other, depending on who starts this weekend. So we will see what happens.
You know what I've got? I've got a Canadian coin that I found from when we went to Vancouver. So you said it's 2-1. Flip a coin. Shall I flip it and see who's going to win? What's heads and tails?
Yeah, tail to Wales, tails to Wrexham, obviously, or the equivalent.
Oh, I flipped it too far. I'll be back.
This is riveting podcasting here, as always, on Rob Ryan Red. Don't worry, there are chants to come as well, which are going to be harrowing for you.
It was tails. It was worth it. It was worth it. It was tails. It was tails.
Okay, so it's 2-1 Wrexham this weekend. That's confirmed. Yeah, what do you think for the next 2 games, though? Because as Sooty said, the Oxford one's probably the bigger one, isn't it? Because it's the chance to win at home in the league.
I watched Oxford. I know Leicester went down to 10 men, but they're not a pushover team. All right, they're not great, but then they'd look at us and say we're not great, are we? They're going to look at the table. I'm just saying, if you're not actually analysing the results, I'm sure Oxford fans would look and go, Wrexham aren't amazing, and they'll see that probably as an opportunity to win with QPR coming to the racecourse. Sheffield Wednesday should have got 3 points really. West Brom came and won. Derby, managed to come away with a point. So it just feels like we need to get the monkey off our back with that home win. You don't want to be, and then Coventry's coming up. They're my league winners elect, really. At the minute, they look so good, and then you're looking further down the line. Charlton have been really good. Just want to get that first one, and then just hope that little by little, bit by bit, you can start to build up that home form. But that's Wednesday's problem. Right now, it's all about Stoke. I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a long time since we got there. And we just need to give a good account of ourselves. We've done well away from home. We're backed really noisily by the fans. And I don't know, much like that chaotic coin flip, that's what that league, that's a good sort of a metaphor or whatever it is for a good example of the league. It's so unpredictable and chaotic that anything could happen at Stoke. You could go and beat Stoke, who've been flying high, and then you could go and get turned over by Oxford. And I don't think I'd be massively surprised in either scenario. So let's just hope for a bit better than that coin toss there.
Well, Nath, and thank you very much, listeners, if you are still listening at this stage. We promised you chants. We've done this in the past and they've not gone down well. There was the fantastic one that Henry did after Sheffield United away in the FA Cup, which was to American Pie, which, Rob and Ryan, I think, both shared that on socials, didn't they?
That was good. That was good.
Never took off. That should come back. Maybe Stoke this weekend. Who knows? I'm sure some of the Manchester Reds are listening. I hope they're not listening to this part because we've asked for chants last week, and we did say this genuinely, that maybe a contributing factor to the poor, not the poor atmosphere at home necessarily, but why it's been a bit flat at times is because we can't just chant the usual chants we've had in the past because so many of these players are now gone, and having Ollie Rathbone back should help us with that because we can just shout Ollie, Ollie, Ollie again. But we thought, Max Cleworth, he's not got a chant, has he? And we asked the listeners last week if they've got anything to come up with. We've got one each year, Nate, haven't we? We have been sent loads and loads of these. It's like the best correspondence we've had to any feature we've ever done. So thank you very much. We're not going to sing them all, sadly. Maybe we can do them out over the next few weeks. Some of them are very long, but in terms of ones that might work more as a chant, we've got one from Max each. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go?
I don't know the tune to this one, so I'm just going to have to read the words, thankfully, to Tom Evans 1057 on YouTube, who came up with the lyrics from the racecourse to away, Cleworth's blocking every play, red and white through and through, Wrexham's pride we sing for you, oh, Max Cleworth, you'll never beat Max Cleworth. So if anyone can tell me if Tom can actually explain to me what that was meant to be to the tune of, which I would have butchered anyway, but he's come up with a fully formed chant there, whether we like it or not, whether people like it. But yeah, from the racecourse to away, Cleworth's blocking every play, red and white through and through, Wrexham's pride, we sing for you, oh, Max Cleworth, you'll never beat Max Cleworth.
Yeah, he's not a tactician and he's not a singer either.
Neither of those things. Neither of those things.
And neither am I. This is from Peter Greenwood from Australia. And this is to the tune of Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I've got my vinyl player behind me, but I don't have
nice.
Frankie Goes to Hollywood 7-inch. Right, here we go then. To the tune of Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood, it's Max Cleworth, you will never get through him. It's Max Cleworth, one of our very own. I need to sing that again in tune. That'll be
better than me. It's better than my one.
I'm sure once Hypnotic have sort of put that through the studio, that will sound absolutely beautiful, actually. Kelly Davidson, you've sent in a suggestion, which is four verses and a chorus. We will not be singing that. I can't imagine the Wrexham fans be singing that, Kelly. We really appreciate it.
What's the chorus, though, and who's it for, Max?
It's a version of Daydream Believer by the Monkees for Max Cleworth.
It's bad I don't know that song, isn't it? Or will I know it? My music knowledge is bad.
You do. You know, everyone knows Daydream Believer.
Okay, fine.
I mean, you didn't know Goldie Looking Chain the other week. So
no, I still have no idea who Goldie Looking Chain are.
Well.
I still have no idea who Goldie Looking Chain are.
Disgraceful. We also had, as you can imagine, a chant in for Cabore to the tune of That's Amore. This is from Stacey in Canada. When the right, I need to get this.
Come on, you get it together here. You got this.
All right. When the ball goes down the line and it's crossed into the spine, that's Cabore. When he shimmers and he shakes, the defensive back shall quake, that's Cabore. Horns will sound, drums will pound, and fans will sing, that's Cabore. It needs a little tweak. I think it's too wordy.
I think someone actually gave a tweak on YouTube to that exact version.
Did they?
Let me see.
Sorry, Nick, I can just see the listeners are dropping off.
They're gone. They're gone now. It's just us, just you and me at this point. Someone else in the YouTube comments did leave one saying a Kikache chant to the tune of La Bamba, which is a great chant, although there were no lyrics offered up.
It's a good feature, though, isn't it? Just give us a song and a player.
And also the classic. I think was it mentioned with you and Sutty last week that about maybe lack of familiarity with some of the players, lack of familiarity with some of the chants. An old chant, a classic, was tweaked by Philip Millington 5190, who put, "We've got Super Phil Parkey. He knows exactly what we need. Cleworth at the back, Kiefer in attack, taking Wrexham to the Premier League." Obviously, if you know the chants, that was Tozer at the back, Mullen in attack, taking Wrexham to the Football League. So that's a nice, easy tweak there, really. Cleworth at the back and Kiefer in attack. But I think we absolutely need to quit while we're ahead. There's only you and I on this. No one's listening now, so we can just round out the podcast,
yeah.
Rich. Yes, although Kelly, we didn't read her email out, but she has patiently, in almost every YouTube comment section, asked if your plant was repotted and is alive. So for the sake of Kelly's plant well-being, I would like you to prove that it does exist.
The first one has been repotted next to me.
There you go.
And the second one that she's actually cares about. This is dreadful podcasting.
It's all good. We're doing this for Kelly. We're supporting the people. It's looking healthy. Yes, well, I'm happy now. Kelly's happy now as well, so that's good. But yes, Rich, while you sit down, that is it. Stoke, Oxford obviously the podcast next week, we play on the Wednesday night. We normally record on a Wednesday. So bear with us slightly for when that post-Oxford podcast is out. Would not make any sense to record in the morning before the game.
There might be, if it's not already been shoehorned in already, there might be an Oxford United preview as well, which could drop maybe over the weekend or Monday or Tuesday as a separate YouTube video as well. Like I said, these midweek schedulings have derailed us a little bit, but we'll try and get you a very quick reaction to Oxford as soon as possible. And then, looking at the next home game after that as well. So it's a very, very busy few weeks, isn't it?
That's it for another week. It's busy few weeks now. Got to get some wins on the board. I'm not saying we need to start like losing games or anything like that. We've got to start winning some games and trust in our ability, Rich. So sign us out before we get another 100 emails about chants and we have to pretend we sing. I've absolutely copped out massively. So you say our goodbyes for us.
Yeah, the good news is the football's coming thick and fast. There will be no more filler for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Here we go. It's time to back the boys. Let's make some noise. You don't have to sing our chants, but thank you so much wherever you are in the world, as always, for tuning in. Thank you for getting in touch as well. It's been a bit sort of, slap and dash today from us on this podcast, but we really appreciate your support and for sticking, if you have, to the very end as well. Thank you always to Red 10 People Development for the continued support and sponsorship of the podcast, and to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for making songs that don't include our singing all the time. Thank you very much to you, though, listening wherever you are in the world. If you haven't already, please do give a like and subscribe on whichever platform you're on. But also, as we tell you every week, on YouTube now as well. So please do help us grow over there as well, and we'll keep the singing to a minimum. Thank you very much. See you on the other side. Back the boys. Make some noise. We'll see you next time.
A Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.